This is a continuation on stakeholder theory in education, the idea of how do parents and students fit within the power continuum. So as I'm continue to prepare for the little session today, we need to define what a stakeholder is. A stakeholder is groups to whom the corporation is responsible to. Freeman has a classic definition which considers a stakeholder is an organization, in an organization, is any group or individual who can affect or is affected by the achievement of the organization's objectives. So within the context of education, clearly we can see students, we can see parents, we can see teachers, we can see members of the school board all within that context. But when we consider who stakeholders are, we need to consider three big major groups that they fall under. Those that have power, legitimacy, and urgency. And so a stakeholder tends to be somebody within those three big contexts. As I think about education, I think about my role as a classroom leader, classroom instruction facilitator. I'm sitting here in the powerhouse of my nucleus, of my TARDIS time machine behind me. Salahuddin and other examples of student work. I think about my role. What is my role to my students? Is it just to facilitate information, or is there an active give and take? And so, largely in the last unit, as we began to close out the year, students designed. Going back to, I had students design their own projects. Right, they could choose whichever standards that they wanted to. It moved the students from being just a dormant stakeholder to a definitive stakeholder, where students actively had a role in the conversation. But as we look at education as a whole, is that how we treat students, and is that how we treat parents? And I would argue largely no. We tend to take a more of a I'd say education takes a little bit more of a parental role over the child. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to learn. Rather than, these are the things that you are going to learn. How are you going to advocate for what you see? How are we empowering you to be able to define and unpack this aspect of your learning? I do largely think that as a school, one of the chief concerns that we will have moving forward is moving students from being just dormant stakeholders to definitive ones. And when I say dormant, I meant dependent. So what a dependent stakeholder is a stakeholder who lacks power but who have urgent, legitimate claims. But the relationship is not reciprocal. There's a lack of empowerment. There's a lack of ownership. It's very much directed instruction. Whereas a definitive stakeholder is a stakeholder that has been empowered and has legitimacy. And in that type of relationship, school teachers, managers, principals, district chiefs would then need to take an active role in empowering and listening to the concerns of the constituents, with students, teachers, parents, administration. Those are the things that are really missing in education, moving us from dependent stakeholders to definitive stakeholders. So I'm curious, what are your ideas and thoughts, and how can we increase advocacy for students and increase advocacy for parents, and not just say that you're a part of the role, you're a part of the relationship, but to really empower them to build that relationship, to really empower them to influence what happens, to influence maybe perhaps what happens in the classroom, to influence what happens in the district, or even on the statewide level. Thanks. Greatly look forward to your thoughts on this.